Hi guys, welcome back. This episode 6 and we will learn about another type of in US design. It's user centered. It's not a type, but it's like a kind, a kind of US design. Okay, let's get started.
Hi, in this video, we're going to explain user-centered design. Why is it important that designs are centered on the user? Because the user buys and uses your product. In addition, it's also important to solve problems that people actually experience, rather than only trying to solve problems you personally experience. Focusing on real user problems reduces the impact of designer bias. Larry Page, one of Google's founders, highlighted just how important user-centered design is when he said, "There is no substitute for personally watching and listening to real people." At Google, we take this to heart. Larry's statement has morphed into one of Google's core values today: focus on the user and all else will follow. User-centered design puts the user front and center. Focusing on the user means considering their story, emotions, and the insights you've gathered about them.
Okay, let's continue.
Keep our focus on the user-centered design process has 4 steps: understand, specify, design, and evaluate. Following this framework helps us build products people actually want to use. First, understand how the user experiences the product or similar products. Really understanding the end user requires a lot of research, and we'll talk more about this later. Next, specify the end user's needs. Based on your research, you'll narrow down which end user problem is the most important to solve. Then, design solutions to the end user's problem. This is where you'll come up with ideas for what the product might look like and actually start building the product. And finally, evaluate your design against your end user's needs. Does your design solve the end user's problem? You'll find out here, and you'll also do it by testing your product with real people. It's important to keep in mind that as you go through this process, iteration is key. Iteration means doing something again by building on previous versions and making tweaks. Let's think about an example of user-centered design in the real world. 5 years ago, we launched Google Photos as a place to store photos and keep them organized. Over time, we noticed that users also want to revisit memories and relive treasured moments. To make it easier for users to do this, we used the user-centered design process to redesign Google Photos. Now users can easily search to find their memories. So, now you understand the importance of user-centered design and why designers always keep the user front and center. Up next, we'll check out 2 additional frameworks that are popular among UX designers. See you there.
Okay, the next is the reading part. This will you can know. Anyways, if you want, just pause the video and read it. I will skip this part. It's kind of interesting, so I prefer you guys should read this to have fully knowledge. Okay, let's go to the next video.
Hi, nice to see you again. Earlier, we discussed the concept of accessibility. Now, we'll explore the various assistive technologies that can empower anyone with a disability. The term assistive technology, or AT for short, is used to describe any products, equipment, and systems that enhance learning, working, and daily living for people with disabilities. In this video, we'll examine several kinds of assistive technologies, including color modification, voice control, screen readers, and alternative text. Then we'll explore a few design considerations to keep in mind when designing for accessibility. Let's get started. First, It's important to call out that there are lots of people who don't identify as having a disability, but still use assistive technologies. That's because ATs make our lives easier and help provide a better user experience. When we think of assistive technology, we might think of computers, tablets, and smartphones. But AT covers a wide range of devices, like prosthetics, pointing devices, electric wheelchairs, power lifts, eye gaze and head trackers, and a whole lot more. AT can also encompass something as low-tech as a pencil holder. Not only does a pencil holder keep your pencil from rolling away, it also makes pencils easier to grip, which can be essential for people with certain motor disabilities. Understanding how people with disabilities use your product is a critical part of the UX design process. First up, let's examine color modification. Color modification, like high contrast mode or dark mode on a device, increases the contrast of colors on a screen. Black text on a white background or white text on a dark background are both examples of high contrast. High contrast makes the interface easier to see for people with low vision. Color modification also helps anyone who might experience eye strain when viewing screens in the dark or midday when the sun is creating an intense glare. Lots of people use it just because it's easier on the eyes.
I think this one, they just mentioned this one. I see.
Next, let's go through voice control and switch devices. Both of these help people with limited dexterity and can serve as an alternative to a keyboard or mouse. Voice control allows users to navigate and interact with the buttons and screens on their devices using only their voice. Lots of devices have settings with this feature. A switch is an assistive technology device that replaces the need to use a computer keyboard or a mouse. Switch devices can allow users to control technology, like a computer or smartphone. There are a lot of different kinds of switch devices, but they all help people with limited motor ability use technology more easily. Next up, screen readers. Screen readers are one of the most common assistive technologies for people with limited vision. The software works on mobile and web devices and reads out loud any on-screen text. Screen readers also read any interactive elements, like buttons, along with non-visible text, like the button names, and any alternative text for images. Alternative text, or alt text, helps translate a visual user interface into a text-based user interface. It essentially uses words to describe any meaningful image for someone who isn't able to see the image. Alt text is also super helpful for those with low bandwidth connections too. If your device is unable to maintain a connection to the internet, it may struggle to load a big file or image. Alt text is useful for context when an image fails to load. As I said before, you don't need to have a disability to benefit from assistive technology. Speech to text is a great example. With speech to text, a user composes text by speaking into their phone or computer. The voice recording is automatically converted into text. A lot of people find it much easier to text by talking to their device because it offers a hands-free experience and reduces the amount of mental energy needed to type. Let me show you. Here I am using the speech-to-text feature on my mobile device. Pretty cool, huh? There are tons of design considerations to take into account in order to meet the needs of all users. Later, when we build wireframes, we'll go through exactly how to incorporate accessibility into your designs. All right, that's it for now. You've learned the common UX terms and frameworks, what user-centered design means, the tools that UX designers use, and how UX designers work across platforms. Plus, you've gained a deeper understanding of inclusive design and equity-focused design. You practice thinking like a designer, which is a core skill you'll continue to build on throughout this program.
Assistive technology, I think, it will be the future of this world because when assistive technology grows, it can make the human not need to do anything, and technology AI will do all for them. So I think it's kind of cool. So I think you guys should put more effort and think about assistive technology it will have in the future. I believe in that.
My name is Elise, and I'm the Accessibility and Inclusion Lead for Corporate Engineering. The work we do touches most of Google's products, and that we are creating the internal stuff that helps ensure the products that we create eventually are accessible and inclusive. I love teaching teams that there's value in difference, in the difference that we find within human beings. Difference helps us think creatively and helps us see gaps in our products. Often when we look into those gaps and the insights that we gain from looking at people who experience the world differently, we build better products that are more adaptable, that are longer lasting, and more innovative. When we talk about accessibility, we are talking about how to make a product accessible by people with different abilities. But when we talk about inclusive design, what we're doing is we're looking to difference, to their different experiences and their needs because of their different capabilities, and gathering these insights and applying it in a way that it will benefit everyone, whether they have a disability or not. If we go back in terms of how we used to do websites, they used to be very text heavy. They used to be more like a book. And people with disabilities for years had been advocating for larger text and less content, much more like smaller chunks of text. And when we started to design for accessibility, we created sites that were much more easily consumed. So accessibility is important to me personally because I have a hearing loss, a severe hearing loss. I began losing my hearing at 10, and it progressed over 5 years until it reached the profound range. So if you were to cover your mouth, say 100 words, and I guess that every single one, I might get one right. As someone with a hearing loss, constantly struggling with situations where I need to communicate with others. I use assistive technology in a lot of different ways. Captioning is the most valuable thing for me. I also use things such as Google's Live Transcribe, which helps in real-time conversations with people. I use Google Meet's closed captions to help me understand meetings that I have with my colleagues. There's also something called InnoCaption, which captions telephone calls using a live transcriber. That completely changed my world because before that was created, I couldn't use telephone. And that was something that really blocked my capabilities as in the work setting. The first piece of advice is to consider edge cases or users with difference in all of your product development processes. This is where you're going to gain some really valuable insight. It should be a normal part of your development process. It shouldn't be an add-on. It should be considered from the beginning. But I think it's extremely important to diversify your own network. Start getting to know people who are different from you. Start learning from them. Ask them what their experiences are like with different technology as they go about their world. Learning these unique experiences is what's going to make you see opportunities for great design in your products.
Interesting, huh? Just as I say, just post the video.
My name is Akhil, and I'm a UX designer at Google. I'm a part of the Next Billion Users team. We design products for users that are coming online for the first time. In my job, I make sure that people can interface seamlessly with technology. So, an example of that would be, let's say you want to send your mom a text, and the phone has the capability to send a text. My job is to bridge that gap and make sure that you can tell the phone to send a text to your mom. Now, if done well, you won't be pulling your hair. The strange thing about UX design is that you won't really notice it if it's good design. You only notice it when it's bad. So there's about 1 billion users that are going to come online from countries like India, Indonesia, Brazil, Mexico. These users have slightly different constraints from users that we typically design for. One of them is that a lot of these users are using low-end devices. So what does that mean? It could mean that they don't have enough storage on their phone, which means they can't install a big enough app. So that's an example of using a low storage device. Sometimes they won't have access to data, or they'll have access to flaky data. So you want to make sure that your app works offline just as well as it works online. Another example could be literacy. A lot of these users aren't literate, or they might not speak English, whereas a lot of the internet is kind of serving people who speak English. So that's another thing to think about. How do we make multilingual interfaces, or how do we make interfaces that don't rely on language at all for someone who can't read? So an interesting example of this could be the music icon. Something as simple as a music icon that we take for granted, the music note, is something that a lot of people don't understand, or they don't know what it means. The reason for that, we think, is because the music icon is a very Western classical music piece of iconography. And since a lot of our users aren't exposed to that, they don't actually know what that icon means. I think when technology is built correctly, it can be a very effective tool. So for things like navigating to a place, or finding a partner, or seeking information, or learning a new skill. I don't think your access to these things should be based on how old or new you are to technology. A lot of our users that are coming online for the first time aren't often confident with technology. And so to not design for them and not help them have access to the internet and to technology, it feels like a great disservice to them.
I kind of like the lie that uh, the app have to work. It doesn't matter your device are old or new. I kind of like that one. Okay, let's start this an assignment. You guys can just write the answer out paper, and then we will check the answer together. I will do on this one. Okay. Okay, let's check the answer. Oh, nice. 18%, 80%. It's just wrong one. You guys can check your guys' answer here. Okay, this is the end of the episode 6. I have an advice for you guys. You guys can just work at a job, but mind your own business. Okay, that's it.